write like someone who's afraid to be seen." The air thickened, heavy with unspoken truths. Ifananya's fingers tightened around the worn cover of her notebook, the paper crinkling slightly under the pressure. Ebuka's voice was low, gentle, yet his words landed with the force of a physical blow. They echoed the quiet fear she carried deep within her. "I am seen," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. She kept her gaze fixed on the intricate patterns of the wooden table between them, avoiding his eyes. It was easier to hide in the details. He didn't press, not with harshness. Instead, he reached out, his finger tracing the title on her manuscript, a story of a woman who built walls around her heart. "Not fully," he said softly, "not where it matters most." It wasn't an accusation. It was an observation, a mirror held up to the part of herself she desperately tried to keep hidden, even from her own reflection. Their world was built on words. Days bled into nights in the quiet hum of the small cafe or the shared silence of his cozy office, surrounded by towering stacks of books. They dissected sentences, debated the weight of a single adjective, sculpted paragraphs until they sang. Ebuka wasn't just her editor. He was the only person who seemed to read the spaces between her words, the stories she didn't dare to write down. He saw the hesitation in her pen strokes, the way she flinched from emotional depth in her characters, mirroring her own avoidance. He challenged her, not just on plot or grammar, but on the truth she was withholding. He pushed her to dig deeper, to feel more, to bleed onto the page. One evening, the city lights painting streaks across the window pane. The conversation drifted from her protagonist's guarded heart to her own. "Ifunanya," he asked, his voice quiet, intimate. "When was the last time you let someone truly see you? Not just the writer, but you?" Her breath hitched. The question hung in the air, heavy and revealing. It unlocked a floodgate of memories she kept carefully locked away. Memories surfaced unbidden. The sting of past abandonment, the hollow ache of promises broken, the fear that anyone she let close would eventually find a reason to leave. People she had loved had disappeared, sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, fading like ink on old paper. Love, she had learned, was a fragile thing, easily lost. She had built her life around stories, instead of living one fully. In her writing, she controlled the narrative, the endings. She could create characters who loved fiercely without the risk of being hurt herself. The page became her shield, her sanctuary, a place where she could explore emotions from a safe distance. This fear, this deep-seated belief that vulnerability led only to pain, manifested in her writing. Her characters were often observers, hesitant participants in their own lives, much like she was. Ebuka, with his gentle persistence, saw this pattern. He saw the walls she had erected, brick by careful brick, around her heart. Their connection deepened with every shared silence, every late-night debate about a character's motivation, every moment he patiently waited for her to find the right word, or the courage to speak a difficult truth. It was an intimacy built not on grand gestures, but on mutual respect, intellectual connection, and the quiet understanding that flowed between two people who spoke the same language of stories and emotions. He would bring her tea just as she started to yawn, remember a minor detail she mentioned weeks ago, or simply sit beside her, offering a comforting presence without the need for conversation. These small acts chipped away at her defenses, making his presence feel not just welcome, but necessary. He was becoming a constant in a life she had carefully curated to avoid constants. This growing closeness terrified her. It felt too real, too steady, too much like the very thing she had sworn to protect herself from. The more she felt herself leaning into his presence, the stronger the urge became to retreat, to pull away before he too could find a reason to leave. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy she was expertly skilled at enacting. So she did what she always did when things felt too close, too vulnerable. She started to pull away. She became busier, less available. Her emails became shorter, her calls less frequent. She created distance, hoping to preempt the pain of potential abandonment by initiating the separation herself. It was a familiar, painful dance she knew by heart. Ebuka noticed, of course. He didn't confront her directly at first. He simply gave her space, a quiet understanding in his eyes that acknowledged her retreat without judgment. But the silence between them grew, heavy with the unspoken words she was holding back, the connection she was trying to sever. Her writing suffered. The words felt flat, lifeless, mirroring the emotional distance she was creating in her life. She couldn't write about love or connection when she was actively running from it. The page, once her sanctuary, now felt like a mirror reflecting her fear and her self-sabotage. The tension stretched between them, taut and fragile. She knew she was hurting him, hurting them, but the fear felt insurmountable. It was easier to retreat into the safety of her solitude, even if it was a lonely safety. Then, the night she expected another quiet evening alone, she found his letter tucked into her mailbox. It wasn't a long letter, but every word was infused with the quiet strength and deep emotion that was so uniquely Ibuka. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. Ifunanya, it began, his familiar script flowing across the page. I have loved you in the pauses between your words, in the fears you refuse to name, in the strength you don't yet fully see in yourself. Her pulse began to thunder in her ears, each beat echoing the truth of his words. He had seen her, truly seen her, even when she couldn't see herself. I have waited, the letter continued, patiently, for you to be ready, for you to trust that not everyone leaves, for you to believe that you are worthy of being seen fully and completely. A tear traced a path down her cheek. He understood her fear, acknowledged it, but didn't let it define her. But, the letter ended, the words sharp with a gentle finality. I cannot love you alone. Love requires courage from both hearts. It requires presence, not just in the quiet moments, but in the brave ones too. I am here, Ifunanya, but I cannot chase you into the shadows you create. The letter was a lifeline and a challenge. It was a declaration of love and a boundary. It forced her to confront the core of her fear. The possibility of losing him was less painful than the certainty of losing him by pushing him away. The choice was stark. Stay hidden and lose him, or step into the light and risk everything. Her heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. She didn't think. She simply acted. She grabbed her keys, her feet carrying her out the door and into the night. She ran, through the quiet, lamplit streets, past sleeping houses, through the lingering tendrils of doubt and the suffocating weight of her fear. She ran towards the only place she knew he might be, the place where they had shared so many quiet moments, the place that felt like the beginning of their story. The old train station, its clock tower, a silent sentinel against the night sky. He was there, standing by the platform, hands tucked into his pockets, looking out at the empty tracks. He wasn't pacing or looking anxious. He was simply waiting, a picture of quiet resolve. He turned as he heard her footsteps, his expression unreadable in the dim light. She stopped a few feet away, catching her breath, the city's distant hum filling the silence between them. Her mind raced, a whirlwind of fear and hope, and the overwhelming realization that she was finally choosing courage over comfort. She swallowed past the lump in her throat, her voice trembling slightly but firm with newfound determination. I see you, she said. The words a promise, a confession, a mirror of his own earlier observation. This time, she met his gaze, holding it steady. She saw the depth of his patience, the quiet hope in his eyes, the love he had written about. A slow smile spread across his face, softening his features. His gaze was steady, knowing, filled with a warmth that reached deep into her soul. He didn't need her to explain, to apologize for running. He simply needed her to stop. And I'm done running, she finished, the declaration freeing her from the chains of her past. It wasn't just about him, it was about herself, about finally choosing to live fully, to love openly, to be seen without fear. The city hummed around them, a quiet witness to the moment. The distant sound of a train whistle blew, not a signal of departure, but of arrival. They stood there, two people who had found each other through words and silence, through stories written and unwritten. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of writing their own narrative, not on paper, but in shared moments, in vulnerability, in the courageous act of choosing to love and be loved. They would write their story together, word by word, moment by moment, with open hearts and the quiet understanding that being truly seen is the most profound love of all. This journey of Ifunanya and Ibuka reminds us that the most compelling stories are often the ones we live. Like Ifunanya, we all carry fears and past hurts that can build walls around our hearts, affecting not just our relationships, but our creative expression. Aspiring writers, remember that your deepest truths, your vulnerabilities, are often the source of your most powerful writing. Don't be afraid to explore those emotions on the page and in your life. For those seeking connection, this story highlights the transformative power of finding someone who truly sees you and the courage it takes to let them in. Relationships thrive on vulnerability and the willingness to stop running from what scares us most. Reflect on the walls you might have built. What fears are holding you back from being fully seen in your writing, in your relationships, in your life? Take inspiration from Ifunanya's choice to stop running. Present and open. If this story resonated with you, if you're on your own journey of vulnerability, writing, or seeking connection, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel for more explorations of love, literature, and the courage it takes to live your truth. Let's build a community where we can all feel seen,